Yeah, well, good morning, Eamon, and I think you're right, it is pretty shocking. I mean, first of all, the government took months to implement the windfall tax. They said they wouldn't do it when we first called for it about a year ago. They finally U-turned on it, but now we find out there's a great big loophole in the middle of it, which is that for every pound that the energy companies, who remember are making multi-billion pounds surplus profits because of the price hikes, for every pound they invest, they get 91 pence back as a subsidy from the taxpayer. Now, that is money that could be used right now to help people who are facing their energy bills rising over the next few months from £1,000 a year ago to £4,500 on average by next April. It is imperative that in the meeting between the Chancellor and the energy companies today, that they close that loophole, because that is money that should be going to help people that are facing a massive cost of living crisis, the likes of which many of them will have not faced in their lifetimes before, not going to subsidise energy companies that are making billions of pounds of profit above and beyond what they ever expected to be making.
I wonder, can you put that into figures? Could you actually give us an idea? Do you happen to know? So they spend £1, they get 91.25p back again. Do we know what that accumulates to? How much that's actually worth over the year?
I don't have the exact figure, but it's worth billions. And the point is that the reason the government has been going slow on this is the government's been saying they're trying to incentivise the energy companies to invest. But actually, the investments made by energy companies are decided years and years in advance. So all they're doing is subsidising the energy companies for decisions they had already made. It will make no difference to whether they're investing or not. All they're doing is allowing companies, I think it was the chairman and the chief executive of BP have said it's like a giant cash machine at the moment, the rising prices. Now, it's a cash machine for them, but it's really causing pain in households up and down the country who are terrified about how they're going to face trebling and quadrupling energy prices over this winter. The government could decide to close that loophole today. Now, from what we've been hearing, from what the Conservative Party have been putting out, they're not proposing to take any decisions at all as a result of this meeting. What is the point of having the meeting? You ask yourself, if that's what's happening. We need this zombie government to get up from the slab and start focusing on how they can help the British people through a cost of living crisis, the likes of which many people have never seen before.
Well, look, in terms of the profit, I mean, obviously the oil and gas companies would often say, and they do say, that goes to their shareholders, and a huge amount of that is people's private pensions. But I want to ask you specifically about this idea of the zombie governments. We've heard almost every day this week comments from Gordon Brown, former Prime Minister, former Labour Prime Minister. Heard nothing from Sir Keir Starmer in all of this. Gordon Brown calling for the temporary renationalisation of energy companies. I want to know, what does Sir Keir Starmer think about all this? Is this Labour official policy, or is this Gordon Brown going out on a limb here?
Well, Labour's been coming up with ideas all the way through for the last year.
So is it Labour's policy then?
With the cost of living crisis. We were first out with the windfall tax. We called for VAT to be taken off energy bills. We called the government not to hike taxes up on working people. Now, we need the government's, in many cases, first of all, poo-pooed all of that, and later on they reversed. What Labour's going to do next week is come up with a full package about what we want to see the government do immediately to help the British people through that. You're going to see that in just a few days' time. And yet the government is telling us they don't intend to do anything for another month while we're facing this crisis. Households up and down the country are facing this crisis. It's interesting that Gordon Brown has come up with a package of proposals. We'll look at that. I mean, the Labour Party is not looking at renationalising energy companies at the moment, but we need a package of proposals that are equal to the challenge facing household budgets up and down this country, because we cannot allow over a third of British households to go into debt because the government chooses to fight each other in a sack rather than get out there and focus on how they can help people.